I believe everyone knows that AGOA stands for African Growth and Opportunity Act. It's an initiative that was given to about 40 sub-Saharan African countries to export duty-free and quota-free to USA. A huge market. But when I saw the theme for today about sustainable, competitive industrial sector in Uganda, and I saw my former minister seated here, so I think the questions about AGOA are well answered. Is Uganda competitive? Is it industrialized? When Caroline was presenting, she said we have about 5,200 factories, and I just asked her, I said, what type of factories are these? Because if we have that, then we should have maximally utilized AGOA. So there could not be a better theme today for me, and I'm glad I was invited here, than this, that Uganda needs to be industrialized for it to take advantage of AGOA maximally. And also at a better time to be industrialized properly without destroying our environment. It's not that to say that Ugandans are not exporting through this initiative. And I think it was mentioned earlier by one of the presenters, some of these opportunities are given to the private sector, but they actually don't take advantage of them. When they think of AGOA, they think of Triester. When they think of AGOA, they think of the Uganda government or the senior presidential advisor. But AGOA is a private sector initiative, and people have taken advantage of it. People are exporting to the US coffee. Fine Spinners is exporting apparel. Samia is exporting tea, fish, and recently, chocolates by Latitude. So actually, AGOA is working, but it is not enough if we actually don't industrialize this country. It's not enough if we don't build the right infrastructure. Because as one of the private sector members who was on the panel mentioned, if you are going to take products to the United States and you don't have an airline that is flying directly to the United States to take your agro products, definitely Ethiopia, which has Ethiopian Airlines, will have their costs lower. So I believe the government is online and is trying to make sure that we do this infrastructure development. The competitiveness, why are we not competing with Kenya, who are maximally utilizing AGOA? Because our export processing zone was not working. And I'm glad to see them here today. So I believe these industrial parks that you are creating will be targeting the right products that can be exported, be it to Europe, be it to America, be it to Canada. Because we get these opportunities, but it's us as Ugandans to work together and make sure we take advantage of them. I was not here to preach about AGOA. I was given a very simple rule, but they say in our culture that where you find the king is where you give them the honor. So I also took advantage to say that all Ugandans should get involved in utilizing AGOA. Right now we are hoping that it gets extended for another 10 years or so, because it just has 2 years. So if you really want to take advantage, there are about 8,500 products under AGOA plus GSP, Generalized System Preference. And in case you want more information, our offices are at NS Workers House, 9th floor. And if you want the AGOA visa to export, be it apparel, anything, you can go to the Ministry of Trade and you'll definitely be assisted. So I really want to thank you for this opportunity. And I said God has a high sense of humor. When the MC asked me to introduce Mr. Ken Williams, I really said God had a sense of humor, because PVH came here many years ago. And so now as I was reading through his profile, I said, well, he's in all countries except Uganda, which has the second best cotton. And yet PVH has not established in Uganda. So I want to take advantage and call upon him, because I know they were here many years ago, and I think I went with them and our minister then, Honorable Miriam Chambade, to meet His Excellency the President. But the issues why they didn't establish here are well known to them, and I think to my minister. But I think we have dealt with those issues, and we call upon them to come and establish, because apart from Egypt, we have the best cotton. So I will briefly introduce Mr. Ken Williams, who is the leader for Africa and Middle East region for the PVH Group. And I think you well know that PVH Group has iconic brands such as Calvin Klein, Tom Hilfiger, and many others, and they have an extensive growth plan for the East and North Africa region. They have built a substantive apparel business, and I believe through this, they will come and export some of our products through fine spinners, manufacturing a diverse product range through multiple outlets in the region. Mr. Williams has over 3 decades of experience in the apparel sector, with extended time in the UK, Portugal, Morocco, Egypt, Malaysia, India, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Vietnam, and most recently based out of Kenya. And I believe by next year it will include Uganda, with responsibility for operations in Ethiopia, Madagascar, Mauritius, Tanzania, Egypt, and Jordan. He has led a large-scale multiple facility greenfield manufacturing site build-outs in Morocco, Malaysia, and Ethiopia. He has also revamped existing manufacturing platforms across 12 other countries. He works extensively on the linkage between the retailers of Europe, Asia, and North America with their manufacturing partners to establish the ideal manufacturing platforms that mirror the retailers' needs. Product profiles range from design houses through to the high street brick and mortar department stores in North America, and lately on the digital sales outlets. Let's welcome him to address us, and most importantly, call upon him to establish, to extend his establishments to Uganda, where we can export under AGOA and have the best cotton. I thank you.
Thank you, first of all. Can I just do an audio check? If somebody could raise a hand or tell me they can hear me.
Nice and clear, Ken.
That's fantastic. Okay, just going to share my screen, so let's try that as well. Hopefully you can see this.
Yes, you can.
Awesome. So first of all, ladies and gentlemen, guests, honestly, it's an absolute privilege to be asked to come and talk to you today. I don't know who that person whose profile was just read out. That's like something that I put together for a job interview maybe 10 years ago. But all joking aside, the point and the privilege is all mine here. And I'm only going to be able to share a very short journey with you. But this is really all about Africa, and specifically East Africa. I've learned so much today already by listening in to all the guest speakers. Fascinating dialogue. The things that I picked out, and I apologize for the incorrect attribution of job titles and politeness. I'm just going to say the names. I really enjoyed Caroline Adrianson's profile and some of the statistics there about, you know, having over 5,000 factories available, over 2 million people involved. You know, the Bulla Port, 4 other industrial areas being developed, the green growth strategy, all of that was music to a private sector private sector's years. The presidential advisor to the industry as well was Amelia, was really fascinating dialogue. I particularly enjoyed Professor Pamela Mbabzi's presentation. I thought that was super charismatic and energetic. But again, you know, fast forwarding the industrial parks, you know, reforming some of the tax infrastructures, you know, things that have been built into the 2022-23 budget. Again, you know, it's great to hear that sort of stuff, because that's exactly the sort of thing companies like PVH will be looking for in terms of the apparatus and infrastructure build out to attract investment. And all the other water and the criticality of water. You will find that most companies these days, like us, will see water preservation, water recycling, water use as the #1 priority need. You know, the technology now exists. We've introduced it in our businesses. It's actually a ticket to the game with PVH. It's no longer on the wish list. You need to have robust, dynamic water recycling in the 90% to be able to be a producer for us. Zero liquid discharge technology exists here. We've introduced it in Ethiopia recently. And again, you know, it's one of the sort of key elements of how we build up. Anyway, let me quickly take you through this for 10 minutes. PVH Corporation is Philips Van Heusen, a long-established business. Probably most people will recognize us for having these two primary brands in our ownership, Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger. They are global brands across Europe, Asia, and North America, albeit we're an American business. Quite a lot of our business obviously comes from sales in other parts of the world. I'll summarize that for you very quickly on this company overview. We've been around for 140 years. We were established 1881, as you can see. We were listed in the New York Stock Exchange in 1920. Today, we own 5 brands, the 2 that are most prominent I've mentioned. We've just under 40,000 associates employed globally, and we source from 44 countries, 7 of which are here in Africa, which I'll come to. We have a total global revenue of around about $8 billion. That puts us in the top 3 apparel manufacturers anywhere in the world. When anybody says top 3 to you, by the way, that means they're third. So we're third, right? So they say top 5, they're 5th. We have over 6,000 retail locations across the world and 55 corporate offices, including the ones that we have here in Africa. And I'm talking to you from our African hub office in Nairobi. And we source from over 2,000 factories, and we have well over 50 corporate responsibility tools and measures now that we consider to be priorities. In Africa specifically, we're currently sourcing from 7 different countries. Kenya, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Mauritius, Madagascar, and Egypt and Tunisia. We are looking at Morocco and Jordan as well, a little bit. And obviously you can see as well, we've punctured in there with Uganda and Rwanda. So we are not at the minute sourcing anything from those 2 countries, but they are in our development package of countries that we're observing and working with. We've had our first visits to those countries literally in the last few weeks. Now, Madam who introduced me said I had been to Uganda before. I am ashamed to say I have never been to Uganda. And it was my predecessor who visited back in 2014 with a review of where we were going to place our business. We weren't at that stage going to work in Uganda, but things have gone full circle. We've only just started manufacturing in Tanzania, literally this month. Rwanda, we are accrediting a factory there to work with our outerwear business. That'll come on stream probably early part of next year. And Uganda, as I mentioned, we've been to visit a number of mills. We're excited by the prospect of what's going on in some of the parks and development mechanisms there. And so it's only going to be a matter of time before I get on a plane and come and visit everybody. I'm sorry it's not today. So our statistics that are relevant to Africa particularly, is in 2021 so far, we've shipped just under 44 million garments out of the region. So we're looking at around about probably something in the region of 60 million garments a year, 60 million items of apparel, that is, coming out of Africa Hub, which is a big growth plan for us. We're sending those all around the world, United States and Canada predominantly, but also to the Far East, to Central America, and also to obviously parts of Australasia and Europe. All coming from here, all under different auspices and duty agreements. But what Africa does have is a robust mechanism for developing duty arrangements for various destinations out the world. Uganda is no exception. Our brand framework, very simple. We have vision, we have purpose, and we have priorities. And within that, we also look at our values: individuality, partnership, passion, integrity, accountability. Sounds like cliches, but that's the sort of linkage that we look for when we work with different countries and different partnerships within our countries. Our corporate responsibility targets, incredibly important to us, obviously, is we've got a zero policy to reduce negative impacts to zero by 2030. 100% positive impacts on ethical sourcing, amplifying worker voices, promoter self workplaces, and we have well over 1 million, associates and lives that we're trying to impact through empowerment programs, inclusion and diversity programs, and talent development. Although you're talking to a proud Welshman here in Africa, I have to tell you, I'm the only foreign national that we have now. The team here is developed through super talent availability to run its own businesses in all our countries and all our offices. So happily, I can float off into the sunset at hopefully some point in the not too distant future, and leave it to the capable hands of people that we've got here. Amazing talent, I have to say. We have different levels of suppliers, which is just for information, really. A level 1 supplier is somebody that does assembly and produces actual garmenting, or it could be shoes, or it could be other items of leather goods. Level 2 is somebody who's the raw material supplier to that process, fabric, leather, etc. Level 3 is a support process like a spinning mill, or produces chemicals, etc. And then level 4 is basically the farm solution. Now, our ideal here in Africa is a farm to fashion solution, okay? So we're not looking for something that's just garmenting. We don't want to do that. We've come to Africa to build a value chain, a supply chain that goes from farm to fashion. We also grade our suppliers to tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. So tier 1 has demonstrated to us through all of the global principles that we're looking to, that they have all the accreditation standards, the compliance standards, they understand regulatory controls, they've done that for a period, and also they have a global footprint. So they're not just manufacturing in one country of location. If you attain a tier 1 status, and we have factories here that do, and businesses here that do, then you will get, shall we say, the first bite of the apple, yeah? Or in Uganda's case, first bite of the pineapple, right? So simply just the last 2 slides, perhaps a little bit more of a granular understanding of how we operate. So we have this triangle, which we apply everywhere we go. So we are the bottom right-hand part of the triangle. We're the brand, okay? We work with a group of our global investors, L1 and L2 investors, and encourage them to follow our business strategy. And our business strategy right now is to grow exponentially in East Africa over the next 2 to 4 years. Today, East Africa only represents around about 13% of our global values. We need to build that to be 30%, 30%, by 2025. The key element, however, that we're looking for is government, right? We need a government that cares considerably about regulatory compliance and controls, understands building regulations, understands fire and electrical installations, understands the value additions of putting through a robust logistics process, a strong banking apparatus, works with us on that development journey that we go from a start point of nothing through to a development platform that produces millions and millions of garments and employs thousands and thousands of people. Now that sounds like a dream, but it's the reality in countries that we operate in. We've built this ecosystem in Kenya, we've built it in Ethiopia, we've built it in Egypt, and we're currently building it in Madagascar. It's already established in countries like Mauritius and Egypt. They're long-standing pedigree countries. So that's the sort of triangle that we look at. So I spend a lot of my time in the top box there with government. So I'll be talking to various cabinet secretaries, various investment authorities, various regulatory bodies to do with enterprise zones, building the story with them, trying to match, government policy and interpreting government policy to match private investor shopping lists. So that's the journey that we're on. It's worked successfully for us so far in our 7 or 8 years here in Africa, and we've grown exponentially, as I said. However, we need to apply the same matrix to other countries that we're looking to expand into, and Uganda, as I mentioned earlier on, is on that list. And then the last piece I would like to show you, and it's probably a little bit controversial, is we have 2 boxes that we think that are important to look at: must-haves and desirables. So these are the things that private investors look for when they're coming to a country of manufacture, okay? Competitive energy costs, strong, robust logistics infrastructures, demographic studies, and so on. I'm not going to read them all to you. I can share this deck, must-haves. And you can see at the bottom there, strong environmental linkage, particularly water use and zero liquid discharge, and obviously meeting some of the things to do with ILO standards of manufacture, and obviously things like working practices and principles. So that's a very, very quick run through, literally 10 minutes, of how PVH goes about its sourcing strategies, and particularly how it can develop those strategies into new countries of manufacture. So I'm going to stop there, and I think I've got about, according to my watch, about 6 minutes. If anybody would like to ask me any questions, I'll stop sharing the screen. Hopefully you got all of that. If not, I'm very pleased.
So thanks a lot for that, Ken. I've got the microphone. Anybody who has any questions, and sorry, Ken, you're not going to get off the hook that easily. You do have a question. You just please give us your name, where you're from, and then give us your question.
Yeah, thanks, Ken, for the presentation. Just one question from me. I'm Busura Bernard, and I write for the South African newspaper. So, I mean, you've said a lot of good things about your brand and what it can offer to small markets like ours, people like me. But I need to understand, I mean, how much has COVID-19 actually affected your business? Are you able to actually invest as much in this day and age compared to probably 2 years ago? And what does that mean for developing country to trying to attract big money and grow its economy?
Thanks a lot for that.
Yeah, that's a really great question, right? And obviously, look, COVID had its impact on demand. The middle part of 2020 was a difficult time for everybody. When the US and North America per se, and Far East, and obviously Europe went into various degrees of lockdown, and we had to be quite agile to develop, opportunities to develop PPE, for example, in our manufacturing hubs. But I must say, now the pandemic is obviously still there, and it still impacts various elements of our supply chain. Okay, there are fractures in what we do. However, somewhat ironically, they're almost adding to the tailwinds of East Africa, right? So, for example, in our Indian subcontinent business, they were not very badly affected during 2020, but in 2021, India and Sri Lanka have suffered a very difficult time, and so we've noticed that we're very exposed there. Nearly 60% of our business comes from that region, and now we're failing to meet demand. Where deliveries are up to 3 months late. Obviously, when you're going into the Christmas period, that's not great. It's Thanksgiving weekend in the UK, in the US this weekend. And we're fighting like crazy to get product there on time. Then there's the China-US trade war, which has almost become more amplified in the last 12 to 18 months. and now we are no longer buying a single gram of cotton from China. The traceability of that cotton now is down to a granular level. The US Customs Authority can trace a garment. If it's got 1% Chinese cotton in it, that container will be embargoed. You will lose the commodity and you will get a black spot against your name. So we are now sourcing cotton from other parts of the world, which I'll come to in a moment, and where Uganda can play on that. And I think the last thing relating to the way that we're operating is that we want to limit our exposure in any particular region, right? We want to try and be like 30% Far East, 30% Indian subcontinent, 30% Africa, right? So we have to get that balance right. And so then the last piece that's adding to the considerable challenges that we've got is the huge hikes we've received in logistics prices of moving commodities from other parts of the world to Africa, right? So we're the last train on the station, we're the last station on the train journey, right? So the demand to develop vertical solutions in Africa, I mean by that everything from farm to fashion, has never been more. And I think Uganda sits in a very favorable position with a good reputation for quality cotton, that at the moment doesn't get turned into anything very much in the country other than some domestic product and some export value product. And to that end, I would actively encourage the people in the room that have influence on this to create your brand, create a brand. Right now, traceability in cotton is almost hard currency. And if you can develop that, call it what you want, it doesn't really matter. But that at the moment would gain a prestige point in the market. So the answer to your question is not easy. The pandemic has changed everything and everybody. But to me, it's accelerated the tailwinds, along with a number of other things that have made East Africa look more attractive today than I think at any point in my tenure.
Okay. Thanks a lot for that, Ken. We do have another question here from Madam Susan Muhwezi. Over to you, Madam.
Thank you, Ken, and I'm glad to see what you put across for someone, your requirements to invest in a country. Just to clarify, I didn't say you are the one who was here, but PVH was here, and representatives from Calvin Klein and Tom Hilfiger some years back. But I just wanted to say that now that we think we are more of an socially inclusive country, which probably at that time was the restriction that could have kept you away, I think it's time to come and invest in Uganda. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Susan. I'm sorry if I was being too blunt there, and very kind of you to introduce me. I fully agree. I think there are no, shall we say, restrictions right now in where we source from in East Africa. I think there's an open-minded position from us, from other partner brands, and I mean that because I think PVH alone shouldn't look at countries of manufacture. I think the lesson that we've learned from our experiences in Ethiopia is that we're better off working with 2 or 3 other brands that are similarly positioned to ours, that have the same needs as we do, to come with us on the journey. I think that gives scalable opportunities for people that want to invest in mills and accessory suppliers as well. So it's an exciting time. I think we need to find a way where we harness the great stuff that I've heard today from everybody involved and just make that into a clear roadmap, of how we progress from there to getting accreditable businesses and growth platforms, for the cotton, textile and apparel sector in Uganda. And I mean that with sincerity. I don't mean it as a cliche, because I'm talking to people on an industrialization platform.
All right, cool, thanks. Because you're not a politician, so yeah, we will take it.
Oh boy, no. I have 0 credentials to talk politics, and super. I am constantly reminded of that by my bosses.
We do have another question here for you.
Just a quick question. Are you in Nigeria at all? Because that's the largest market on the continent.
We have a West Africa company. It's a great question. Thank you. We have a West Africa strategy at the minute, and it's quite an interesting one. And I think it harks back to some of the commentary that I heard earlier on. We have explored Ghana, Togo, and Cote d'Ivoire, and that's very much ongoing. And we're starting to look at Ghana specifically. Nigeria, we haven't done. But we are looking at Nigeria from a retail perspective. Okay, so we're looking to open stores, etc. And of course, if that does happen, then the natural evolution is that it will become a vertical supply chain as well. The other thing of interest, by the way, and again, going back to what was said earlier on about the fashion section, the only growth segment in fashion and apparel around the world today is repurposed, recycled, circular, deconstructed product. Okay, everything else, yes, is there, it's steady, but the only growth sector is somebody that's doing something with a seriously clear environmental and ethical footprint. So again, I think that's an exciting time for East Africa, right? The technology now exists to repurpose product coming into the country, recycle it, reuse it, circular economy. That's a huge part of our future. And we have a significant team based both here and in the Indian subcontinent and in New York, related into the process from day one. So we use all our waste materials, recycle those products, can even look at, whether the country can, I'm sorry, the word in Uganda, I don't know. In Kenya, it's matumba. Recycled clothing, second-hand market clothing that we can repurpose and reprocess and put it back into the market. Huge amount of opportunity in that space.
All right, thanks a lot. One last question before we move on to the next session. So you'll please tell us who you are and fire your question at Ken.
My name is Simon Chigwe from Gardenia Investments. Thank you very much for your contribution to the development of Africa. Looks like you've put in a lot. And my question is, on the question of moral practices and principles. You've been to Madagascar, you've been to Kenya, and all these other countries. How have you fared, say, on the rate from 1 to 10? And if this is low, what do you suggest that is put in place? Because it's very important to have moral principles for any development in any country, in a society. So,
okay.
All right.
Okay, so that's so the one thing with a humbly reply is I listened to you telling me that you have the finest pineapples, the finest coffee, the finest soil, the finest earth, the second best cotton, right? I'm agnostic, so I have learned my lesson over many failings to try and grade things in a league table. Although I would say to you, the team in the Kenya office were listening to you say about the coffee being #1 in East Africa, and there were howls of derision claiming that Kenya's got the #1 coffee, right? So I know it's shark-infested waters. You don't go anywhere near telling people what their indigenous product can be. The model fiber part of it, the model application part of it, it's a great question, right? Okay, it's a really good question and very important. We have to, being a shareholder company, we obviously have sets of accountabilities that make us prominent and obvious that we have a code of conduct, right? That's obvious. That's right. Either through our investor partners or through PVH as itself. There's more of a need than there is resource at the moment, and that's one thing that we have to look for. But some of our partners, like Save the Children, some of the Thomas Bernardo homes who work with people like that here, they're directly benefiting from our existence in the arena. However, I would say to you, there's a lot more work that needs to be done on that element of it. And then again, along the opportunities that present themselves in countries of manufacture, like say Kenya, for example, all of our staff here, all of our staff in an investment profile are graduates of universities, whether it be University of Kenyatta or University of Nairobi, People that have had tremendous upbringing in textiles and apparel, for example, but never really had the opportunity to develop that and work with an international set of brands. So that, again, is something that we're at the scope of doing. People going to the US, people going to our Amsterdam offices, people going to other countries of manufacture. So we have to come and be better than anything else that we've been. And I think one of the things I would say to you that the reason why I came to East Africa, and this sounds like a cliche, so please bear with me. I've been in sourcing from many, many countries and living in many countries. And most of the countries that I operated in were governed by people that didn't care about regulatory compliance, okay? They just didn't care. Buildings went up, companies came in, people were exploited to the point of awful outcomes, and some of that stuff that went on in Bangladesh in 2013 had a seismic impact on the industry. So we've been going around trying to bandage up and elastoplast and greenwash these countries, right? We came to East Africa to be best in class. Okay, remember that, best in class. We didn't come here to be just the same as we are anywhere else. So what we've tried to build is a best-in-class manufacturing supply chain from A to Z, right the way from the beginning of the farm, right the way through to the end product and retail outlets. It's a journey that we're on. This is year 6. It's a 10-year journey, at least. I would have thought maybe it's not even a journey. Maybe it's a destination that we'll never get to. But our aspiration is to be like that. So what you'll find is that people talk about things like, let's go to the cheapest cost of manufacture. No, that's no longer number one. We need to go to the best countries of manufacture. And by best, we mean the governance of the country has the best regulatory compliances and controls. It has a value addition to us in sustainable and renewable energy use. It has a policy that everybody understands in terms of its raw material supply and traceability. It has a speed to market component, a fast response component. All those things now are in the top 5. Yeah, it used to be all about chasing the cheapest dollar. Yeah. And I think businesses like PVH have learned that's no longer going to get you anywhere.
All right, thanks a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please put your hands together for Ken Williams from PVH? There's still more questions in the room. Unfortunately, because of time, Ken, we're going to have to say thank you very, very much.